Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is WatchArtSci, the art and science of watch collection. Today what I want to do is talk about using your smartphone with watches, photographing watches. Some watches like this one are fairly complex in terms of colors and functions and everything else. This one has red and black and white on it. Others are relatively simple. This is one of a nice, clean dial, so it's easy to photograph, but it has blued hands, and that takes another technique as well. So let's start with this. This is a tripod. It's one of the things that you're going to need sooner or later doing watch photography. Now, this one I got from Amazon. It has a clamp on it, and it'll take just about any size smartphone that has your camera in it. This particular one is for an iPhone Plus 6, and so it's a pretty good size one. Now, another type of tripod that I use, it's not a tripod per se, but rather what I did, I took some blocks, and then with the blocks I just put the camera, lay it right on top like this. Now the trick is that there are two things that are very important in any photography. One is light and the other one is focus. Now there are a lot of other things involved too, and I'm not anywhere near a professional photographer. I just use my iPhone and I take pictures of watches. You can also make videos with them and do a number of other things, but I just want to talk about photographing watches. All right, so that's the first things I want to talk about is the way that you get it focused with these is you simply cut different pieces until you have a good focus, and so you can lay the watch flat on the bottom down here, and like this you can just put your watch down there, lay your smartphone on top, and there's a focus button, and the focus button on my particular phone, hang on, let me get this all set up here, is that when I want to photograph something, all I do is that I just put my finger on it. For example, let's say that I want to photograph this watch, and see if I can find it here, and then I just do this and a little square comes up of where the focal point is. If you press it and hold it down, it locks it in. This is especially good if you're making videos, I found out, because some of my videos were doing all kinds of crazy things. Some of it that just lock in the focus, and it's quite easy to do. The other kinds of phones that are not iPhones have great cameras. Some of the best Android cameras have one, I think it's by Samsung Galaxy. They got some fantastic cameras in them. Also, too, there's usually some software that you can do some basic editing with in your phone. That's something else that you need to get to know. And so, all right. So, two things. First of all, is get some kind of tripod. This one I got on Amazon, and they have it in a lot of different versions. I got a pretty heavy-duty one because my phone is so big. The other thing is some kind of stable platform. It doesn't have to be a bunch of blocks like this. It can be anything. I use the blocks because sometimes if I put a special lens on it, I'll have to add it a little lower or add something higher. You know, this is something you can experiment with, but it has to be stable. That's the big thing. If you get a stable picture, otherwise you can get things blurry, and this becomes very important when you start using close-ups. Okay, so that's the first thing that we can do to get started. A couple of other tools that you're going to need has to do with lighting. And there are basically two that I'm going to recommend. One is a gooseneck magnifying light. Now, the magnifying light that you get is up to you. The one I have, I keep it above everything, and I can open this up and then look through here, and I can see my watches. I can photograph them. If I turn on the light, it will lighten them up, and then I can bring it up over here and use it as an overhead light if I need it. The other is called a light tent. And to tell you the truth, I have a light tent, and I suppose there's a lot more uses for it than I give it. Here's why. Using a smartphone, it can be very tricky to get the right shot within a light tent. I think what I may do is invest in a small light tent that I can use my iPhone with. The big one I have, I can put my whole case in there and some other things I can do that are pretty nice, but well, watches aren't that big, and most of the time I'm photographing individual watches. What I use my light tent for right now is that over here, the light coming from here, I took the light and put them inside the tent, turned them on, and it diffuses the light. Another trick that you can use, and it's a very inexpensive one, is you can take a piece of tissue paper and simply attach it to any lights that are lighting up where you are or where your watch is. And what this does, again, is diffusing the light. I had an earlier video on photographing watches and so forth, and diffuse light's very important. One other trick that I learned was that when photographing, if you want to show the blued hands on your watch, here are a couple watches that have blued hands, and as you can see, the blue doesn't really show up. What I found was that if I turn off some of these other lights and I lay these in front of my computer monitor screen. I got a great big 27-inch one, so it puts off a lot of light. But the light from that brings out the blue in the hands. I'm not sure why, but it does. Okay, so two things that you want to get as far as lighting is concerned that I would suggest would be a light tent, a small one perhaps, and anything that will diffuse the light. Now you can buy these photographers kits and so forth, and they'll have all kinds of lighting for you. But just for your watches, I think a smaller size light tent. And then I would also recommend some kind of lighted magnifying. You can do a lot of things with that, and so those are two of the things that you might want to take a look at. Another aspect of watch photography is getting close-ups. And the purpose of getting close-ups originally was to take a look at the fine finishing that you have on your exceptional horology and high horology watches. And by really getting in there, you can tell the difference between one that is high and one that's exceptional. Here there's a picture of a Beauvais, and you can see that point, and if you look at the tip of the point on the, you can see that it's been beveled. One of the things I found out from one of the judges, one of the Grand Prix judges, is that machines, while they can be used to bevel the plates and so forth on the movement, the tips have to be hand beveled. And usually what they do, they simply bevel it to one side and then the other side and leave the tip unbeveled. And that's one of the ways you can do it, and it's sort of fun. And the different types of watches, here's one that's also has some very fine finishing to it. And here's another. And you can look in these things, and in this particular one, this is a FP Journe, and you can see the smoothness of the work that's been done, and it's really helpful. Now, in order to do that, you can get these close-up lenses. This particular one is not very powerful. It's just 2x, but that's better than nothing. And I got this a very inexpensive one. I got it from Amazon. It comes with a lot of other lenses, but they're all for wide angle. Now, another type of close-up lens, I got a set of these from Apple, and they're made for Apple phones, but they were made for the Apple 7. I have a 6, and I hope to have a 10 one of these days. And also I can use it on my iPad. So this is another thing that you can do. And one of the things that I was interested in was on this Parmigiani. The color scheme was such that I wasn't sure whether the little hands were machine painted. They went through, they had them all lined up and blasted them all 10,000 of them or whatever. But Parmigiani, they don't make that many. I think they have a total of 2,000 or 5,000 watches. I think it's 5,000 a year, I'm not sure. And of this model and of this color scheme and so forth, I wasn't sure. And so I used my close-up lens, and what I did is that I superimposed the close-up with what it looks like on your wrist. And you can see here you have this close-up, and it looked like somebody was practicing their Van Gogh techniques and putting this very heavy paint on. But you can see how small it is. It's quite small. Here it is on my wrist, and it's this little bitty subdial that's on the 3 o'clock position of another subdial. So it's quite small, but with the close-up lens, you can get a pretty good look at it. I don't know whether it was hand done or they had a machine do it, but I know there are very few of this particular model with this color scheme and stainless steel and so forth. I don't know how many they made, but I just thought, well, they probably had somebody says, okay, go Joe, here's a paintbrush, go paint these little hands and hang them out to dry, and looks like they got quite a bit of paint on there. So anyway, so that's one of the other things you can do with your close-up lens, and all you have to do with them is they just slip on the top of your camera. And like I said, these were for the Apple 7, but I've used them on different ones, and you could probably use them on also the different brands on Androids and so forth. And then they have a little lens cover, and then when you're not using them, they just slip right off, and you can put them out of the way and use your regular iPad or your phone or whatever you have for anything else. But these are very handy to have because you can really get some good close-ups with them, and find out little things about your watch. There's the final thing I want to talk about with this is there's so much really fantastic software out there that you can get your hands on. And the software, Photoshop, of course, everyone knows Photoshop. There's a simpler one called Photoshop Elements, and an even simpler one for people like me called Fireworks. It's an older one from Adobe, but there are all kinds of ones. Whatever your favorite video or your, not video, but your graphic editing software is. And it runs the gamut from very simple to very complex, and you can do a lot of stuff with it. Like this one right here, I did using Fireworks. I superimpose the one used with the magnifying lens on top of the one without the magnifying lens. Okay, well, those are some tricks and stuff. I'd love to hear some of the ones that you might use making watch photographs with your smartphone. And also, as always, this is an invitation to subscribe if you'd like. And next Sunday, now, I'm not sure really. There are a bunch of different things that are going on right now. We have two really cool collections I want to review, and it'll depend on some other things that are going on. So we'll see that. It'll be a surprise. So until next Friday, this is Bill Sanders with WatchArtSci, the art and science of watch collection. Hope to see you Friday and again Sunday.